main concern is that the forecast for Thursday night and Friday. Storm Emma is coming up from the south and will meet polar air from the east. It will give rise to heavy snowfalls combined with strong winds of up to 100 kilometres per hour. These conditions will start at approximately 4 p.m. tomorrow and spread northwards across Munster and Leinster. Met Éireann has issued a red level warning for blizzard-like conditions in Munster and Leinster from 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon to noon on Friday. Having considered this serious warning, the National Emergency Coordination Group has advised that people should not venture out of doors while the red level warning is in place. Most importantly, people need to be back safe and sound in their homes no later than 4 o'clock tomorrow in Munster and Leinster. Having considered this serious warning, the National Emergency Coordination Group has advised that people should not venture out of doors while the red level warning is in place. Once again, that's between 4 o'clock tomorrow and 12 noon on Friday in Munster and Leinster. Given the disruption to transport, public safety risks, and the need to get home safely before blizzard-like conditions hit Munster and Leinster, all schools, all colleges, and all third-level institutions in the red areas will be closed tomorrow. They will stay closed on Friday because the conditions in those red areas will remain severe. Decisions on school closures in Connacht and Ulster will be made locally at school level, and the situation in Connacht and Ulster will be kept under constant review. Public transport will be seriously disrupted tomorrow. Specifically, Dublin bus will not operate. Bus Éireann and local link in Munster and Leinster will not operate, and most private bus companies will not be operating either. Irish Rail will run services tomorrow morning, but services will wind down from 12 noon and 2 p.m. Lewis will run a limited service up until lunchtime. Most importantly, people need to be back safe and sound in their homes no later than 4 o'clock tomorrow in Munster and Leinster. Employers should assess whether it's safe or even necessary for them to open, and whether it's safe for their staff to travel to and from work. Government departments, offices and agencies which don't provide essential services will close on Thursday and Friday in Leinster and Munster. Departments and agencies which do provide essential services will advise their own staff accordingly. We urge everyone, families, businesses, farmers, fishermen, to heed this advice and to plan ahead for tomorrow's red level warning. I want to thank all of our teams, the local authorities and Garda Síochána and Defence Forces and state agencies for their work done so far, done today, to keep transport and other services going and to keep people safe. I'm particularly conscious of people who are homeless at this time, and I want to thank all of those in local government and in the voluntary outreach organisations for making sure that everyone who needs shelter has access to shelter, food and heat. And I want to remind everyone to think of their elderly and vulnerable neighbours, especially people who are living alone. It was really encouraging to see our strong sense of community as we look out for one another at times like this in the past, and I'm sure it'll be no different this time. We have not experienced blizzard-like conditions like this since 1982, but the reports from that time remind us of the serious and life-threatening conditions that can be posed by heavy snow and strong winds when they come together. The public is advised to monitor Met Éireann and check gov.ie for all information, links and further updates. And most importantly, stay safe. Thank you.
Welcome everybody. I just want to introduce you to a book today that I've just finished reading over Christmas 2016, and it's called A Farewell to Ice, a report from the Arctic by Peter Wadhams. And I felt compelled to share this information because I think what's contained in this book is very, very important information that everybody on this planet right now should know about, and know about the seriousness of the message that Peter Wadhams is trying to convey to us in this very scientific, very rational, very calm, sober assessment of the perilous situation that we find ourselves in vis-a-vis global warming. I've been reading this sort of information on global warming since the late 1980s, when James Hansen, I think, was the first piece of literature I read on global warming, and I think it was called Towards a Warmer World, and I just picked it up in the geography department in UCC. It was about 1988-89, thereabouts, and I read this stuff on global warming, and I thought that was my awakening to the effect or the impacts of our species, mankind, humankind, on the living world, on the planet, on nature. I've been very aware of the impacts we were having at a local level, but this was awakening up to our total impact on the biosphere, if you like. So I'd just like to read from the foreword to this book by Walter Munk, and I think it sums up the book very, very well. Walter Munk, he's with the Scripps Institution of Oceanography at La Jolla, California. Peter Wadhams has been a polar researcher for 47 years, during which time he has observed and measured major changes in the nature of sea ice cover in the polar regions. In this book, he first gives a brief review of the planet and the development of its ice on land and sea. He goes on to describe the profound transformations that he has witnessed during his career. The area of Arctic sea ice in summer has dwindled from more than 8 million square kilometres to less than half that, leading to projections for the imminent occurrence of ice-free summers in the Arctic. The melting of sea ice is not just a curious phenomenon in a remote part of our world. It sharply decreases the amount of solar radiation reflected back into space, from 60% to 10%. 1/6 the amount that's been reflected back out, and that obviously is going to have a serious impact on the heating of the planet and global warming, further accelerating the planetary warming cycle. Frozen sediments, which have lain undisturbed since the last ice age, are now releasing plumes of methane, a very potent greenhouse gas, up to 23 times more potent than carbon dioxide, which we hear a lot of talk about carbon dioxide, not so much talk about methane. Obviously methane is a byproduct as well of the agricultural industry, ruminant cattle, belching cattle, not farting cattle, belching cattle produce huge amounts of methane, and the Irish agricultural system is responsible for a huge amount of that as well, per capita. A Farewell to Ice is both an authoritative report of the state of the Arctic today and a timely reminder of the global threat posed by the loss of its sea ice. It's a call to arms. I think it's a desperate cry to wake a world up, to wake it out of its slumber, to the havoc that we're wreaking on the natural world. When you remove Arctic sea ice, in the Arctic it's sea ice, so it's floating on the water. In the Antarctic it's on top of land. On Greenland it's on top of land. When you remove that white covering on the planet, soil, like grass, or peaty soils, or even just soil, if you look at a ploughed field, that's brown or dark, that absorbs a lot more energy. So that's a positive feedback loop there, that you hear a lot of talk about positive feedback loops. So warming melts the ice. Further warming is absorbed then by the darker soils which are exposed when the ice is removed. Two of the things he talks about as well is the tundra in Siberia, where the melting is taking place as well. So and what is contained in the tundra is organic material, which is now beginning to release huge plumes of methane gas. Again, I referred to earlier on as being 23 times more warming than CO2, which is the main global warming gas. Without CO2 in the atmosphere, we wouldn't be able to live on this planet, because it's what actually retains, one of the gases that helps us retain heat on this planet. A pre-industrial level was about 280 parts per million carbon dioxide. Last year, 2016, we exceeded, for the first time in modern history, in recent history, 400 parts per million carbon dioxide. Now I want to talk about what I refer to as the silence. To be fair to RT, they've done, even in the last week, we're now in the first week of January 2017, they've done very good coverage on the health service, they've done very good coverage on homelessness, they've done very good coverage on other current social issues and economic issues, which are very important. And I think there's been some very good debate chaired by RT, but there's been an absolute and utter silence on this issue. I think a lot of people are going more and more to the so-called alternative media. And the reason this is happening, I believe, in my own case, is what I would refer to as the wall of silence. I don't want to call it a conspiracy of silence, but it's definitely a wall of silence. And particularly when it comes to environmental matters, the matters that keep me awake at night, that exercise my mind every waking hour, the things that I worry about, the things that I think, will we have a planet worth living on in 50 years' time? Will the next generation and the generation after that, which is not far away, it's a blink of an eye in time, we now need to be doing something about it. In fact, we probably needed to do something about it 50 years ago.